he hated to miss it.
That's all right. Hey, everybody, this is Bob, and I'm with Kyle Wiltshire. Is that correct?
Wiltshire, yeah, Wiltshire.
Oh, do you actually have the Shire rather than just the Shire? Because
The
there's
Shire,
the big road in Los Angeles called Wiltshire.
Wiltshire Boulevard, yeah, that's right. No, there's no T. It's just Wilshire Boulevard, I think.
Oh, you're right.
But
It's just Wiltshire. You're right.
Yeah, we had the T in.
So Kyle is here, and I was going to ask, my first question was going to be, are you the one with the glasses? But now I see that you are. So
clearly I am. Yeah.
So there's no mystery there. And you guys wrote a book called Dead Rock Stars, which we will get to in just a moment. But one of the things that jumped out to me on your thing is that you've watched all of the Highlander movies. And so if there can be only one, why are there two of you?
That's a great question. It really is a great question for the Highlander series, because for years it was the one guy, and then they made a TV show, and it turned out the one guy actually had a cousin,
Yeah, how'd that happen, right?
Now there is only two. The reason we highlight that Highlander series is because I don't know if there's ever been a property, this is totally not true, but a property that has such a confusing and wonky mythology. when you try to look at the story they're trying to tell, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And so you just highlighted a great point. The whole point of it is there can be only one.
Right, there can be only one.
Every time they find someone new, they find a new bad guy who's frozen in ice or something. So
maybe that's the lesson, is there's never only one. Maybe that's what they're trying. Yeah. They didn't realize they were being so philosophical with that, but
that's deep, man.
There's never one. There's always another. Bigger fish, all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
So yeah, but the goofiest thing is, the reason I wanted to talk to you guys. I mean, obviously the book sounds interesting and everything, but I love whenever people put kind of weird esoteric statements in their bios, and having the Highlander thing in there is just like, okay, this is interesting, because most people are like, I'm the greatest person ever. You should talk to me because I do great things all the time. But most people don't really highlight these kind of side things that popular culture side avenues that most people really are, that's really kind of where they're at. I mean, most of the time.
Yeah.
I think about that. So you said you watched them all on VHS, which means I guess you didn't catch it at the movies.
That shows our age, right? So we weren't old enough to see them at the movies, but
right.
We're not young enough to have watched them on DVD or on streaming services.
Right.
We hit that, that 80s, 90s era of VHS.
Which is another, it's another weird kind of thing that jumped out at me. So was this something that you guys, so you went to college together, which, so did you watch the Highlander movies in college, or?
Yeah, at some point in college, we, that's really part of our backstory. We may get into it later, but Jay and I have always loved movies and stories, and any type of like continuity and those sort of things. And so we started realizing, as we were in our early 20s or whatever, man, there's a lot of movie series out there. There's a lot of shows we hadn't seen for some reason or other. We just missed them, so like. We chose the Highlander because we think it's funny, but like we watched the whole Godfather series, because we had never seen those movies for some reason.
That's pretty funny too. I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah. Well, we were just old or young enough to, that they were sort of 20 years old at that point or so, maybe a little older, but we're like, hey, we've never seen these, so let's sit down and watch these. Then we revisited stuff that we had seen over and over, like the Star Trek movies, maybe not all the TV shows, but like the Captain Kirk movies,
right? So motion picture, that horrible movie, Star Trek, the motion picture. Oh.
Yeah. The one with the whales, like all they're all interesting and quirky and fun, and some amazing in their own ways, And so we discovered Highlander, because the first one was like, man, Sean Connery's in this, can't be that bad, right?
Yeah.
The first one, you know,
I'm
kind
a
of
Spaniard that speaks with a Scottish accent. I'm from Spain now.
that's right.
Yes,
The Spaniard, yeah.
I'm
I'd
a
forgotten that he was
Spaniard.
supposed to be from Spain, yeah, and he had the thick Scottish accent. That's hilarious. So yeah, just another quirkiness of the series. So yeah, we just plowed through those. We watched them in the dorm room and in our apartments later on in, you know, in life after we graduated. And so yeah, it's just those were just a fun example of us watching something and going, you know, years and years later, though, I think we could do this. You know, if they made Highlander 2, which is, you know, generally recognized one of the worst movies like ever made,
Yeah.
it just takes all the mythology from the first one and just flushes it,
Yeah, they're like,
you know.
we just want to make money. We don't really care about all that.
Yeah, and so if Highlander 2 can get made, surely we can tell a story better than Highlander 2. You know, that's
Mm.
you talk
Well,
about, you know, people putting their
that's the
bios.
motivation. There you go.
Well, totally. You know, you say in people's bios, they're talking about how great they are. That's our kind of subtle way to say, hey, we're pretty cool. We wrote a story that's better than Highlander 2.
Yeah,
You know,
we're better than we didn't
we're
set the
better than
bar
that.
high, but we're better than that.
Well, then 3 comes
Um,
along and just erases 2 as if it never happened.
it,
So it's, you know, it's
that's
just
right. Oh
hilarious.
well, forget about that.
Right.
So you mentioned, so did you guys meet because of this fondness for kind of uh, interesting movie choices, or tell me your origin stories, I suppose, between the two of you, possibly.
Yeah, so Jay and I again. Oh, I hate that he's not here because he's so much fun, and we are just like the complementary parts, right? So, personality wise, he's an extrovert. I'm an introvert. You know, like when it comes to you know, ambition or entrepreneurial spirit or whatever, he's the gas pedal, man, and I'm the brake. I'm like, whoa, we need to think about this, and he's like, let's go, you know, and so. We just complement each other in so many ways. And so when we were in college, as a freshman, I was sitting in my dorm room, and I hear a knock on my door, and I go answer it. And by the way, I was watching Rocky 3, a series we later watched, all the Rocky movies. But I answer my door, and
Ooh.
it's yeah, Adrian, you know. And so I answer my door, and it's Jay, and I had met Jay just like in passing, so we weren't close at that point. But, you know, long story short, basically he was like, come out of this dorm room and be my friend. Let's go hang out. Let's do some stuff together. And it really
you,
was that
you,
simple.
you not to draw comparisons, but there's a Netflix documentary on Wham, which is an 80s band.
Yeah.
And Andrew Ridgeley drug George Michael out of his hole. If you watch that, there's a very similar vibe to that. I mean, you know, not to
Yeah.
compare you guys, but it just struck me as you mentioned
How funny.
that happened as well. So you have to check it out because it actually is a very good documentary, even if you don't like Wham. But
Yeah. Oh
either
man,
way,
you couldn't get through the 80s without, you know, just Wham, you know,
I know it's
inundation, man.
everywhere.
They were everywhere. And I would
Yeah,
have put
but
it the opposite. I would have guessed that Ridgely was the introvert and
no,
Michaels was the extrovert. That he was the one pulling Ridgely out and getting him going places and stuff.
no, it was exactly the opposite.
Oh, cool.
And I will tell you, you know, in all honesty, I despised Wham whenever it was popular. And then I watched, you know, later in life, you mellow a little bit, and I'm like, oh, this is all right. And then I watched the documentary. I'm like, oh, this is a very a sweet story. So
Yeah.
anyway, not to plug that necessarily because we should be plugging the dead rock stars, but I was curious to see to hear like kind of you guys got together. So he was really, you know, kind of the was he bored? I mean, why did he choose you of all people? I guess would be my question. If you're the
Yeah.
introvert and he's the extrovert, why did he say, hey, were you just available? I mean, you were
You
just
know,
hanging out, or
that is a great question. I have never thought to ask him, man, why'd you pursue me, you know, in a friendship way, you know, just like, I guess, you know, maybe, like I said, we had interacted a little bit. Maybe, you know, he heard me say something funny or whatever. And truth be told, we ended up in the same fraternity. And so I think there was a degree of the fraternity rush, you know, kind of thing
Mhm.
happening. Like, hey, let's get people into our group, you know, sort of. So I think it maybe began there. But another thing, I do know this is that he didn't have a car at that point, and I did, and so he needed someone to
Ah.
take him places and go to McDonald's and get his medium Coke and cinnamon roll, which was his order in 1997, probably still today, but Diet Coke now,
Diet Coke and half a cinnamon roll or something.
That's
So
right.
so
Yeah.
you had the car, and so then okay. I see Kyle as my link to transportation, and he obviously is doing nothing, so he can take me where I want to go.
That's right. Yeah, that is totally the truth. I was doing nothing. I was going to class and going to my dorm room and just laying low.
So then you guys, you were going to college, and you were feeding his addiction to fast food, drinks, and treats,
And my own.
and your own. So did you go? So so after college, right? So you guys obviously still talk to each other. You're working on this project and so forth. How does that happen? I mean, why? Why? I mean, most times people. I mean, you keep your friends, right? But you don't necessarily continue, the same way, I suppose.
We went to the same town after college, lived in the same city, ended up in the same like apartment complex. It was like this little,
So this is a stalking story at this point.
I guess so. Yeah, maybe so. I've never thought of it that way, but that's
who moved there first.
He went first. He's older than me. He's a year older than me, so he went first.
Oh, so you're the stalker. I'm talking to Kyle, the stalker.
Oh, easy, Bob. Easy.
Okay, I'm just joking.
Teasing, man. But so we just stayed together, and then when we went our separate ways after that period of life, we just stayed in touch, man. Jay is I hate it he's not here, because he is a connector of people. He continues to nurture and cultivate relationships. Some people like me, more so like me, you have a season with people and you move, and it's sort of, fond memories, thankful for them, love them, whatever. But I'm not the type to continue to, try to keep relationship fires going. And truth be told, we're best friends. And so, of course we're going to stay close together, but he truly works at it. He's a great connector of people. And so we just stayed on the phone. One of the funny things that he would do is, this is right at the advent of TiVo. And the town I moved to didn't have. We were wanting to watch the Star Trek series Enterprise. That just shows our level of nerddom, right?
Yeah.
And the town I moved to, this is long before streamers or any of that stuff, didn't have UPN or whatever network it came on. WB, I can't remember what network it came on. Paramount, yes.
Yeah.
And so he would DVR. He would DVR episodes of Star Trek Enterprise for me. Initially, put them on VHS and mailed them to me, and then he started putting them on disc and would mail them to me. I would watch them, and then we'd talk about them on the phone.
Oh my gosh, so that's a level of commitment there.
It is. We were very passionate about the
point,
early journeys.
You're not even the driver.
That's right. Yeah. Well, he was married at that point. I was not. He was. Yeah. We just. It was just kind of one of those fun things we kept doing. But we were passionate about the ongoing stories of the Starship Enterprise.
Which I do like Enterprise. That's a very good one of the better series, I suppose I should say.
It was
if I had to rank them. Yeah.
It was interesting.
If you ranked them, what would you put it at? I would put it at I put it third, let's say. No, wait, fourth.
Listen, I am a very casual Star Trek fan. I'm a TV flipper Star Trek fan, is what it is. What that means is, if you're flipping through and you see, Picard on the deck of the Enterprise, you're like, oh, I'll watch this. In years past, or oh man, Shatner's about to beat somebody up. Man, I'm going to watch this. This is fun. So I never got into Deep Space Nine. I never got into Voyager. But something about Enterprise dragged us in.
Apparently, Jay didn't want to send you those tapes.
No, we were. Our level of nerddom can only go so far, Bob. We can only go so far.
Well, that's fun. So then you guys. So I guess we should get to the project here. So.
Sure.
So you guys were going through your friends for a very long time, and now who decided, hey, let's write this Dead Rock Stars thing?
Yeah. So on our commutes, as we got older, we would call one another in our morning commute and we would just chat about, something we'd seen or a book we're reading or, something, never about the important stuff, family and whatever. It was always about the fun pop culture stuff we were engaged in. And I, I'm kind of an idea guy. I'm always thinking of stuff. My wheels are always turning, like I'm the internal one. So my wheels are always turning. And I've always got ideas churning. So I had this idea. What about, what if these rock stars, so many of them tragically passed away too soon, but what if they didn't? What if they faked their deaths and they become secret agents? And I kind of told Jay that idea one time, and I kind of remember him pausing. And my first thought was, "Oh, this is so stupid." He's gonna tell me, "No, that's so dumb." But he paused, and he paused long enough for me to say, "Yeah, it's $1 million idea, right?" With like a, kind of a sarcasm. And he replied, "Kyle, that's not $1 million idea. That's $1 billion universe. We've got to do this." And so, like I said,
he's MCU in it right now.
yeah, for sure. He's the accelerator. He's the gas pedal. And so he's like, "Let's do it. Let's write this." And this was September of 2018 when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
I remember because we had a whiteboard session. I agreed. I was like, "Okay, fine, whatever." And truth be told, Jay and I had tried some projects before, not really writing projects, but we launched a website for a brief time and we talked about some things, and we never really kept it going or saw things to the finish line. So I was kind of skeptical, and more than likely, I just was wanting to change the subject. But I entertained it, and we went and had a meeting and on a whiteboard session talked about what the story could be, the plot of the story. Like I say, we're always critical of plot holes in stories. So we were like, this is where we want to begin. This is where we want to end. Now, how do we get there? So we gave a very, 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 skeletal outline of where we wanted to go. And so we charted maybe the first like 4 to 6 chapters and made assignments. Okay, Jay was going to write the first 2. I was going to write the next 2. And we'll just see how it goes. And so he wrote these first 2 chapters. And, he sent them to me and I read them and I was just blown away. I know Jay, I knew Jay was super creative, had a great imagination, but what he put on those first 2 chapters was just like, man, we really do need to do this. And so I wrote the next 2, and seriously, it was just boom from there. Now, life happens. There were start and stops over time, but we finally finished a first draft in 2020. Thank you to the pandemic. When nobody could do anything but sit around at home. So we actually finished our pandemic project. And so we kind of launched it from there. That was sort of how it came to the conclusion, the first draft of the story.
Mm-hmm. So then I get yourself a drink there. So then so give me a little taste. So are we talking what dead rock stars are we talking about? So unfortunately I haven't read the book. I wish that I would say, "Oh yes, I read the book," but I think it just came out technically in November.
It did.
And I can't remember when I wrote off to Jay, but it was probably not too long after that, I don't think. So
yeah, now we've been trying to jump on as many podcasts as we can to like help people find the book, discover the book, and learn about it. Yeah, so the thumbnail sketch, like I said, dead rock stars fake their deaths, became secret agents. But we didn't want to just make it all these dead rock stars. And I'll give a few hints, or to let you know a few people that are in the book. We like to keep some of it a little bit fun and spoiler free, but Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, Janis Joplin, the folks you can read on the on the back cover,
the 27 Club, a lot of them then, huh?
Some of the 27 Club, yeah, for sure. But here's the thing: we started doing some math, and we started realizing, oh man, if we try to set it in the present day, a lot of those of the most famous ones would be really way too old. So we started thinking, when's a sweet spot? And we landed on 1999. As the year.
Wouldn't hurt to the Highlander thing. Pull that in. They just live forever, so you don't have to worry about it. Borrow from the Highlander.
It's not quite that metaphysical, It's more.
Then you get Freddie Mercury's in there,
For sure, yeah. So we set it in 1999, and then we started realizing that okay, these rock stars were real people.
Mhm.
And as much as we would want to try to encapsulate who they are and what they were like, we're never going to get it right. Absolutely perfect. We're going to do something that a true hardcore Elvis fan would be like, Elvis King would never do that,
Right,
or
yeah.
a Janis Joplin fan would be like, no, she wouldn't. So what we decided was we need another character to be the main character, the protagonist, that we see this world of the dead rock stars through his eyes.
The
So
Oscar
that
Goldman, the handler.
Yeah. Well, really, honestly, of course, you got to set your goals really high,
Mhm.
But the real it was Harry Potter, right? So Harry Potter
Oh.
goes in this world. He's part of this world by birth and by his, I guess genes. How does magic get passed? Genetics. I have no idea. She never addressed that part, but
The rock
so.
stars of the magic world.
That's right. But he comes in and he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what the words mean. He doesn't know what a muggle is or any of these things. So he's got to learn all this stuff. So we took the same approach. Our character has to come in, our main character has to come in just like everybody else and doesn't know anything and has to be explained everything. Otherwise it feels like, maybe it's a little too much of a hill to climb. There's so many books that I feel like, it takes 100 pages before you ever really understand what it is you're reading. I tried to read Dune, when the movie came out a couple of years ago, and I was
Yeah.
like, I think I'm going to put this down. But thankfully, I stuck with it and I got through the first book,
Yeah,
but it took
they're a
100
trudge, I
pages.
think.
That is a trudge.
Yeah, you should watch the original Dune movie from David.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Lynch.
If you haven't read the book, that movie is just unintelligible. There's no way to understand what's going on unless you've read the book.
Yeah, it's a wild movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
The old Dune. The old Dune. Yeah.
The old Dune. Yeah. So all that to say, our main character is a guy named Cole Denton. He's imaginary, and he is not a rock star. Our rock stars discover, particularly Elvis discovers, that there's a new threat happening in the world that the Dead Rock Stars team is they're unequipped to handle. They need someone with a different perspective, with a different, set of eyes to come in and help them with this new threat. And so they recruit a rock star from the tech world. So he's a tech genius. He's an early, internet genius. So it, kind of in the mold of, the guys that are running the world now, Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, and these people, if they would have been in their, would have been in their 20s at that point. He's in his early 20s when we meet him. And so he comes into this universe, this Dead Rock Stars universe, to help them solve a problem that they don't know how to solve. So that's kind of the setup of our story.
Brings you into the world then, huh?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Do you get into the idea of why they want to disappear? I mean, does each one have kind of their own little origin story, as it were, to why they want to not, be rock star famous?
A little bit, and some of it is left to the imagination a little bit. But the truth is, many of those people, not all of them, many of those people, the reason they passed away so early is because of addiction or because of the price of fame or whatever it was. And so we thought it would be untrue to who they were to not include some of those realities. And so there's a huge element in our story of redemption and recovery and family providing the things that maybe they didn't have as much of. The world took a lot from them, and it cost them a lot. The world gave a lot to them, in terms of fame and riches and so forth, but the world took from them as well. And a lot of those people have tragic stories of people siphoning, money and time and energy from them just to make a profit. And so what if these folks got clean? What if they, realized that in order to get clean and to make a true difference, not a rock and roll difference, but a true difference in the world, we've got to die to ourselves. We've got to step away from this life, and we can secretly save the world. And so that kind of plays into the motivation a little bit. versus, hey, this song's going to save the world. It's no, and actually these skills that I acquire are going to help save the world.
Oh, interesting.
And that's kind of the plan.
So
yeah.
Now I have to ask, is there any history with you guys, leading the rock star life? I mean, it can't all be McDonald's cinnamon rolls and Coca-Cola. And it leads you to this, because these are ideas, I think, that happen, as you run into things yourself, you say, oh, wait a minute, this is not the best approach to life. Maybe I need to do something else. Is there any autobiographical things in there, or maybe just you touched on some of these and kind of like, there's the kid that feels that the stove is hot and doesn't put his finger on it. And there's a kid who slaps his whole hand on there and says, what happened?
Well, the truth is both Jay and I were more, we believed it when people told us that the stove was hot and we didn't go touch it. That's a great analogy. We were the ones that believed it, or I've said it before, wet paint. You see a sign that says wet paint, most people want to go touch it. No, we believe that the paint was wet, so we're not going to go touch it. So it was not from autobiography. However, Cole Denton, our protagonist, is an amalgam of Jay Watson and Kyle Wiltshire. I mean, he truly is a combination of our personalities. Now, neither of us, funny to say, are tech geniuses. Jay's more so than I. I think I stopped updating my internal iOS in about 2007. So I'm still, technology from 2007 is new to me,
That's a good way to put it. It's funny.
But Jay's continued to, he's continued to upload the newest one. He's a Google guy though. He's the friend in your group that makes you have green text boxes. So that's, he's that guy. So I can say that since he's not here, I can throw that rock. But
he's one of those greenies. I think that's
a greenie.
We're going to call him greenies.
Yeah, he's going to hate that. I brought that up.
Let's make that stick, Kyle. You want to be a bluey or a greenie?
That's right. He calls us sheeple. Everyone who goes with the iPhone, he's like, oh, you are all sheep. All of you are sheep. So yeah. So all that to say, we did not go down that road. Now we've had some people in our lives that have. So it's not that we have zero experience of folks who have struggled with addiction or struggled with substance or those sort of things. But more so, we learned a lot about these folks from biographies and from interviews and, those sort of things. Because again, we knew we couldn't hit the absolute bullseye of recreating who they were. And truth to be told, we didn't want to just recreate who they were. We wanted Elvis Presley 22 years later. Not the one who died sitting on the toilet, right? We want the one 22 years later who's in recovery, who has been trained, beyond just his, karate chopping, has been trained to really fight and lead. He's the leader of the secret agent team, so he's got all these different skills, all these different perspectives, but he's still at his core, who he is. He's still Elvis Presley. So we wanted to hit a target. Maybe not necessarily the bullseye though, as to who they were.
You want to bring him across. So I guess he can't wear any TCB jewelry in his new life.
No, that's the thing. He totally can. Because dead is dead, right? When someone dies, nobody thinks a second thing of it, because when someone's gone, they're gone. And so these folks,
they're invisible in society because of it. So
they can
still wearing a cape?
Blend in.
Is he still wearing a big suit with a cape and the big glasses and all that?
In the first chapter of our book, so this is not a spoiler at all, you meet Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly, and they are both dressed just like it was 1957. Buddy's got the horn rim glasses and the neatly pressed suit, and Elvis is in his, I guess Elvis wouldn't have been 57. It'd have been more like, 77. He's in his Aztec, a sequin jumpsuit and, just strolling down the street. We made a joke. I think we heard this story that in like the, I'm going to expose a hole in my knowledge. I don't know when Charlie Chaplin was, but we heard that there was a time when Charlie Chaplin entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike mimic contest.
Yeah.
and
he lost.
he got third place or something like that. You know, he was the actual Charlie Chaplin. So we recycled that, made a joke that Elvis entered a Elvis lookalike contest and got third place.
Yeah, I think
but here he is.
There's a Dolly Parton story about that too, where she entered a contest and didn't win, a Dolly Parton lookalike contest. And I think a person in drag won.
Oh, well, you know, Dolly always says it's awfully expensive to look this cheap.
That's
you know,
right.
That's her famous quote. So,
well, that's fun though. Yeah. So that they're out there and everybody's kind of like, oh, that, you know, they're probably people give them the side eye as they're walking around. Oh, what the heck, what's going on with these guys?
Yeah, they interact with people. They're in Las Vegas. They interact with people. Oh. People, you know, point at them, laugh at them, you know, kind of make commentary. Elvis even at one point pulls his guitar out and plays some music to create a distraction, you know, so Buddy can do part of their mission. So yeah, it's just kind of that's something we thought about. You know, we were kids in the 80s and 90s, and so every time we checked out the grocery store, you know, the National Enquirer,
right, the sighting,
you know,
yeah.
It was always, oh, Elvis, he was seen in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the pizzeria or whatever, you know. And so we write that into the book as well, that you know, hey, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they actually did see us.
There was a sighting. Yeah, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, and if you head west on Highway 70, there was a famous building that was the Elvis is Alive Museum. That some guy had for many years. He passed away, and so it's gone away now. But I mean, gosh, into the probably 2010s, you could stop at the Elvis is Alive Museum and see, you know, artifacts or something. I never stopped. I really wish I would have now because it's gone.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Oh, you can look it up. I'm sure there's stuff online about it, but yeah. So that's interesting. So you have this. You've created this whole universe of dead rock stars who are trying to save the world, essentially, right? So that's their thing. But this is a novelization. This isn't like a graphic novel. This is like a regular novelization, correct?
Yeah, actual book. You know, the truth is we wrote a book because we didn't know how to write a movie. Like we really want to write a movie, but we had no idea how to do that. So we said, well, let's just write a book. And honestly, it's easier to get a book created and made, even if you have to self-publish, even if you have to, you know, do it yourself. So let's just write this. Let's make this a book, and maybe somebody will discover it one day and turn it into a movie for us. That would be
there
fun.
You go. Yeah, they'll be like, well, let's remake the Highlander, and everybody's like, oh, come on. Well, I think they're going to do that, though. To be honest,
I think they are. Yeah, Superman's playing him, from what I understand.
Yeah, let's have any kind of other ideas. Let's just stick with the ones that have already generated. So you mentioned that Jay wrote the first two chapters, right? And then at what point did he need a ride and you jumped into this mix?
So honestly, our process was we would each write the first draft of a chapter and then we'd exchange. And so honestly, it's probably he wrote half, I wrote half. I can't really go through and tell you exactly who wrote what chapters, but he wrote half, I wrote half, and then we would exchange and make edits for one another, make suggested changes, give some thoughts, give some ideas, steer something in another direction, those sort of things. And so honestly, where one of us might have written the first draft, we both worked so much on every chapter in the book that it is really no telling where he starts and where I end and where I start and where he ends. It is our creation, and everyone that's read it that we've interacted with, I've asked a few. I've said, hey, can you tell that two people wrote it? And they're like, no, not at all. And so that's been really, really encouraging and reassuring that it does seem to have a unified single voice, even though it's, like a 50-50 deal from the first draft, I should say. But yeah, we both went behind one another and edited and suggested changes, and we argued over things, and we ended up with is totally our baby. It's our our project.
So when you're I want to ask some process questions here. So did
Yeah.
you employ, like when you wrote, did you just like, I go away and write and I send it to you and then you go away and read and write and then send it to me? Or did you have any kind of, did you use any technology in between? Were you like on Zoom or on anything where you were doing stuff together, or how was that, how did that process go for you?
Yeah, so we would start with, the basic assignment. You have chapter 1 and 2, I have chapter 3 and 4, and then we'd, kind of go from there, assign out the chapters. And we did it in like, maybe fourths. We'd write it at, fourth or maybe even a fifth at a time. And we had a Google Doc. So there would
Oh,
be
okay.
times when
Yeah.
I would jump in the Google Doc and I would look on, his chapter or whatever, and I could see words in real time,
Uh-huh.
and I would try to resist reading, even though I'd want to read what he's writing, because sometimes when you write something, you're just trying to get words on a page, and you'll come back later and clean it up and make it
Mhm.
make it better. And so yeah, I would see the real time as things were coming in, and that was always kind of fun. But yeah, we would meet in person quite often. There would be times when we would write a lot, and then we'd take a few weeks off because life or work or holidays or whatever else would kind of happen.
Mhm.
Sometimes he would be really passionate and be working a lot and be going back through chapters, and sometimes I would be really passionate and he had have to take a back seat. And so I've said this many times, as people have asked me. The truth is, two heads are better than one. And when you have respect for one another, and you care for one another in a way that it's not about ego, it's not about who's getting credit or any of that sort of thing. It's more about like, hey, we want to tell a story, we want it to be as great as we can make it. And I don't want any more credit than you, and you don't want any more credit than me.
Mhm.
We're equal on the byline. That's kind of the idea there. And so it really is amazing when two folks are working on something and they have the same goal in mind, what you can do together. It's kind of fun.
So, would you say either one of your backgrounds are in, authoring things or writing predominantly? Or, I mean, did you want to go into that a little bit? Like, I mean, what do you do during the day? Obviously, this is something that's a uh, for lack of a better term, I'll call a hobby plus, because it's a hobby, but you want it to be more than a hobby, I'm assuming, since you're doing all this work.
Yeah.
But so whenever you go to, people go, oh, everybody says I'm going to write a book these days, but nobody does. I mean, obviously. So I mean, what prepared you to do this? Was there anything in your background that did so?
I mean, we watched every movie that we could growing up. Just there was a lot of taking in movies and stories. Now, this was not what I did then, but now I'm an editor, and so that is completely new within the last 3 years that I've done, and so that helped us get it across the finish line as I sort of turned into that role. I'm a content editor. I'm not a periods and syntax and grammar editor. I'm more
Uh-huh.
like the big picture of things. I get the first edit. This doesn't make sense. Those sort of things. And so
Uh-huh.
that honestly, this hobby sort of helped inform my career in some ways.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, yeah, so it kind of the flip, the inverse was true for us. But yeah, I think our experience with just all the movies and TV shows and stories we've taken in over the course of our lives um, made us most prepared. We had a great editor who came and helped us. We've had several editors actually who came behind and helped clean our story up and
Mhm.
point us in the right directions and help you know give us suggestions to move it in the best way possible, and cleaned a lot of things up. Our publisher only allowed a under 100,000 words, and
Mhm.
so the manuscript we turned into our editor was over right at 100,000, maybe 99,000 words, and he cut it down to about 92, 93. So he found some
We're gonna
superfluous words in there that he cut out.
gonna
And
get right under the limit here, guys. We'll be
that's
good.
right. That's right. So yeah, so we
Yeah.
had a lot of help, and I think our love for movies and TV and stories is really what prepped us for this.
So, would you? Can I ask what degree did you get when you guys were in college?
Um, Nothing that led us toward where we are now.
Okay. I was like, are you English major, or were you,
No,
communications person? I mean,
Jay was in communications, but it was more the like, I don't know exactly the right, like on screen, maybe, maybe he was, the speaking, less behind the scenes stuff. Both Jay and I have career in ministry. So my career, my path prepared me for a role in ministry. And so that is, sort of our background. When you ask the question about, have you touched the hot stove? Thankfully not.
Right. Yeah.
That was a big reason why. But so that's sort of what we did. We wrote a lot of papers. I'll tell you that. But not in the fiction realm, not in the realm of fiction. So kind of a different world.
That's interesting. Okay, so that's an interesting path. So then, do you touch upon that in the stories as well? So I mean, since you mentioned that, I mean, my head starts pinging around here. Yeah, and I'm like, wouldn't it be interesting, to have these folks? Then you talked about redemption and so forth. And the way I was thinking about it now, since you mentioned that puts redemption in a whole different light. Yeah, so is it redemption in the sense of a religious redemption, as well as just a like a substance use problem?
It's not, it's not overt. It's not, like we're not trying to put our faith in anyone's face. That's not what we're trying to do. But there's sort of an underlying current of a redemptive lifestyle. It's not about religion. It's not about they don't go to church or anything. In the story, but they do realize to make a difference, they have to die to themselves. They've got to not literally, but kind of spiritually, in a sense, die to who they were and become these new people to really help make a difference in the world. So it's, there's that theme, but it's not, that's not like
it's not overt. It's not anything overt or anything.
Yeah.
You could easily say Elvis says, "Hey, buddy, I'll be right back. I got to go to a little chapel and perform a ceremony." To make some side money. He's doing weddings in Las Vegas at the little chapels. So.
For sure.
But no, that's interesting. So, but obviously, I hate to spin off on this, but I'm thinking about it because basically most fiction, a lot of modern fiction, borrows heavily from that the Bible, and borrows heavily from these ideas of death and rebirth and so forth. And again, not in an overtly religious way, but there's always the Christ like characters, right? In all kinds of fiction, even in fiction that you wouldn't think about to have anything to do with religion. So it's interesting that that you mentioned that for your thing, is that then there's can be this whole aspect of it as well, because you maybe led a path of self-destruction, and now you're deciding, well, that wasn't so great. Maybe I need to do some good for the world, and their path of doing good is through this organization. Does the organization have a name, by the way? Kind of like Spectre or
well, like, I mean, the DRS.
Okay.
It actually, the DR and the S actually. I don't know how much I want to get into this, because it is.
That's okay. Don't tell me too much, but don't give away the story. But I got asked the questions. Basically, they just come into my head, so I got.
Yeah, no, ask away. Yeah, I'll answer what I can. No, there's
you
a
can
Latin
say no.
phrase.
That's privileged information if you buy the book.
Got to read the book first, man. No, there's a Latin phrase, that DRS, because what you'll find when you read the book is that the DRS is much older than you might think. It's been going on for a long time, and the current iteration of people, like rock stars, it wasn't always rock stars that led the team. And as they're seeing the future and maybe leaning toward technology as the forefront,
Uh-huh.
When you read the book, you'll find out that in the past, different people sort of led this group. And it was the 1950s when the shift happened where let's make them all rock stars. So that's just a little
Okay.
taste of what you'll
Before they
find when
were
you get
the
into
lute
it.
players and the calligraphers. That was the leading the.
Yeah.
There were all these calligraphy guys that were out there. I don't. I'm just. Yeah. Anyway, I was just riffing, but that's very interesting though. So now let me. There's a question that comes into my head. So,
Yeah.
and again, only answer what you feel like answering. I'm not forcing
Sure.
you. I'm not Mike Wallace or Chris Wallace or any of those Wallaces that force people into weird situations. So you're talking about basically popular culture people, right? So I guess my question would be, did you run into any problems? Because I mean, Elvis is a big name and so forth. And then if you write a story that includes even a fictionalized Elvis, is anybody coming at you for this?
Boy, that was something we really worried about. We talked with our publisher and we talked with some attorneys, and what it boils down to is that if someone is dead, you can use them as a character. You cannot use their likeness, so you will not see Elvis Presley on the cover of our book, but you can't use their likeness and you can't use their lyrics. And that's the other thing. When in our first draft of the book, there was a lot of song lyrics, and when we were told no, you can't print song lyrics, that you have to pay all kind of royalties and those sort of things. So we deleted all the song lyrics. They're all gone.
Quickly we deleted those lyrics.
That's right. But you can write about, people who were real. So here's kind of what helped us feel like, okay, we really can do this. If you've ever seen the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there's that scene where Brad Pitt's character fights Bruce Lee, and there's a lot of
very controversial.
It was very controversial because he didn't paint Bruce Lee in the shiniest of lights. He kind of made him come off as a jerk a little bit. And Sharon Tate, she was a real person. She was brutally murdered. And yes, the point of the story is to, make a fairy tale. What if she didn't? What if she wasn't murdered? And sort of if Hollywood were this fairy tale land, it's not. I don't know if that's the way Quentin Tarantino would describe it. That's the way I took it, though. This is a Hollywood fairy tale, and it's happily ever after. Instead of the tragedy that really happened. So we watched that movie, and if you notice in the movie, the only one who's still alive who was pictured on screen was Roman Polanski, that's a whole nother ball of wax. We don't have to get into that. But he was portrayed in the film. He looked like Austin Powers, but he was in it. He doesn't say a word. I think one point he whispers in someone's ear, but you can't hear what he's saying. You cannot put a real person who's still alive in a story apart from a lot of permissions or apart from something that's so innocuous. You can't put words in a living person's mouth. You can put words in a dead person's mouth.
There's a lesson for everybody. You can't put words in a dead person's mouth. That sounds like a take right there.
Yeah, but so far so good. No, we've not gotten any. No estates have said anything. To us.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess it would be hard because it seems like as a society we're much more in tune with the visual media. I mean, America, perhaps. Maybe other cultures are a little more in tune with the things, but written word more directly. But America certainly is visual media. It seems to be the king of everything. And so if you get into anything with the images, then they get all nasty with you. So
so no images.
Interesting. So you've got this one done, right? And you're out there, you're talking to me, for goodness sake. And so I guess what's the plan in the future here? What's the next step for you guys?
Well, we definitely want to write 2 more stories. Like
I said, you gotta get a trilogy.
A trilogy, man. That's
is it with trilogies? What would you say? Why is the trilogy so why are people so in tune with a trilogy?
I'll tell you why. I think it's real simple. It's beginning, middle, and end. That's, I think that makes it really, kind of simplified. And so if you look at the greatest trilogy of all time, my opinion,
Star
the
Wars,
greatest trilogy
yes.
of all time, Star Wars episode 4, 5, and 6, the
Right. Yeah.
middle stories,
Yeah. Well,
the originals.
I get into fights with people because they call it episode 4. I'm like, no, it's just called Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's all they called it. They didn't call it anything else. It was called Star Wars.
Yeah, that's right. So Star Wars A New Hope, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars Return of the Jedi. That, to me, that's the greatest trilogy of all time. And if you watch it, it's a perfect beginning, middle, and end. And so that's our desire. We want to tell a story that has a beginning, that has a middle, and has an end. And
having a toy tie-in doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah. Kenner, give us a call. I don't think Kenner still exists, but
they got absorbed by Hasbro, I think. So
whoever, yeah. So, but that's the desire is, create a story that starts at one place and has the middle portion where people develop. There's plot. There's everything hits the fan, and then comes to a conclusion. It comes to a satisfying conclusion. When you start getting into, part 9 and all these things, man, at some points it just gets a little, we're still doing this, huh? Yeah. Okay. But
that's why you haven't gotten any further in Dune. I can't think there is 9 books.
That's right. Yo, I did. I read the first chapter of the next book, and I was like, I can't do it, man.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
That's a tough one. Dune is for the fanatics.
Hardcore, man.
Yeah.
I read Ender's Game too when that movie came out several years ago, and I read the first chapter of the next one after that. I was like, I can't do this. I can do the original, but I can't read all of them. There's too many. There's too many of them.
Well, that's interesting. So do you have your timeline for the next book?
Yeah, so the first one takes place in 1999. The second one doesn't pick up like, the next day, but it'll pick up soon after where the first story ends. Mm-hmm. And it's in that late 90s, early 2000s timeframe is where we want to live. We feel like that's the richest place. Again, both for the age of many of the rock stars in the story, and the world. One thing that we ran into a challenge as we wrote, neither of us being tech geniuses, and technology is a huge part of our first story. We didn't want to write in such a way to expose that we don't know anything about technology. We had a friend of Jay's that is a tech guy. He knows this stuff, and we had several lunches with him and picked his brain. We're like, now, is it possible if? And we would spool some idea or plot thread that we're thinking about, and he would say, no, you can't do it. You couldn't do that. No way. And then
that's funny.
We'd say, could you do it? Yeah, you could do that. All we needed was, that would be possible. And so we'd run with it. We want to live in that soft sci-fi world, where we're not explaining how the catalytic converter works or whatever. We just, we just want to make this broad picture. We're not going to get into the hard sci-fi like Dune and Ender's Game, where they're getting deep into the, the mythology and how the science works. That's not us. No.
And most of the classic movies are ruined by cell phones these days because things wouldn't happen. I mean,
that's right.
If you take The Graduate, I mean, if there were cell phones, what's the point of the whole movie? He shows up at the end. He could have just texted or something.
Right? Yeah. I'm gonna embarrass myself. I've never seen that one start to finish.
The Graduate. Okay. Ending. Well,
never seen it
start
to finish.
That's a little older than your area there that you've been talking about before. So
a little bit, but I mean, of course, here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Cuckoo,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I was going to mention that reminded me. So you can't use the lyrics, but you can use you can have Elvis or peanut butter banana sandwich. So he could always say stuff about those kind of things you could throw in there without any kind of problem. Or Buddy Holly.
You could use a song title. You could use a song title and reference songs, but no lyrics. And we did want to kind of lean into some of their personality, but we didn't want to lean too much into the stereotype, especially when it came to Elvis, because he can be such a cartoon in culture. Because Elvis was one of those few guys that we did get to see age. We saw him when he was young and fresh in the 50s and handsome.
Right.
And we saw him old and bloated, after the world had done its worst to him. And a lot of the others, they're frozen in time. Jim Morrison's frozen in time as this Adonis, never got to see him.
He got a little bloated there in this.
We did, but man, his record company never made him do a disco album. You know what I mean?
True.
Like those sort of things. What would Janis Joplin's synth pop album have sounded like in the 80s when she's trying to stay relevant?
She'd be like Cher by now at this point. I guess it didn't die already. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So we never got to see them, many of them in those places. They're that frozen in time, state of who they were. And so to be able to fast forward them into the future is really a lot of fun, to project what they would have been like if they had a different mindset of, it's less about fame and all these other things. It's more about the family we have and saving the world, protecting the world. It's kind of fun way to look at it.
Well, fantastic. So just to wrap it up, I've got the website on there, deadrockstarsbook.com, where you can go and purchase, I'm assuming, and as well as look a little bit more about it. And then you're going to put a coming soon for 2025 for Dead Rock Stars Book 2.
Oh man, we got to get this one in as many hands as we can before we can think
2025 is too early.
A little too early. We have ideas. We have great ideas, but we haven't started writing. Yeah.
Now, are you going to introduce more characters? Is that part? Are you going to keep the same characters? You're going to introduce, some new characters? Is Kurt Cobain going to show up at some point here in this universe?
Have to read and find out, but one thing's for sure.
Look at that.
There are so many of these people that could be included. We always try to make it very, very clear that there's more of them out there than It's kind of like the comic books, like when in the Avengers comic books or the X-Men comic books or whatever. Not every single one of them is in every single episode, or every single issue. They have different missions and different reasons. And somebody's out doing this, and somebody's in another place taking care of something else. So as the books unfold, our plan is to introduce more people and explain where they are and why they weren't in the first book or that sort of thing. So that's
off on assignment in Paris or something. Yeah,
that's right, man. You are closer than you realize.
Oh my goodness! I was gonna say you should make Kurt the communications person. Everybody's like, Kurt, I don't understand. Kurt, what are you saying? What was that? I don't get it. Say it again, Kurt. No. Anyway.
I wanted to say before, you can on our website, deadrockstarsbook.com. Right now we're selling autographed copies. We have a special seal that indicates that it's a first edition. So if you'd like to get one of those, you can get those there. But if you'd rather get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, anywhere books are sold, you can find our book out there in the wild, in the world. It's popped up in a bookstore too. So we're really excited about that. Check it out. We'd love to and follow us on all of our socials. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, X, whatever it's called nowadays. Interact with us. We'd love to chat about this. This is one of our passions is sharing this story with folks.
And all your handles are Dead Rockstar Books, or Dead Rockstars Book for the Twitter and everything. Oh, you're looking. He's checking.
Let me look at, because we couldn't secure all the same.
That's okay. They can go to the website and then they can branch off from there if they need to.
Yeah. So the Dead Rockstars Book on Facebook, the DRS Book on Instagram, and DRS Book on Twitter.
There you go.
So
Well, Kyle, thank you. Tell Jay, thank you. I am impressed that you guys went from basically being the early Uber. Kyle was the early Uber, and now you're writing books together. You've managed to get through Jay using you for a transportation and have blossomed into a friendship. And this is one of the results. And we're looking for 2 more, hopefully before the end of the decade.
I hope
I'll
so.
give you longer. I'll say before the end of the decade.
That would be wonderful. We're not going to George R. Martin this and never write the next one. It'll happen at some point, man. Thank you for having me on your show today. It's so much fun. Great questions, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, take care. Look for the book and find out what happens whenever your favorite rock star leaves the scene.